Happy holidays from Damani Studios. This is Christopher Smith, and I'm going to show you how to make a shakeable snow globe today. I've already got the document kind of set up because I wanted to use some images from the library that we've already developed in Photoshop. You know, this is for the purpose of the tutorial, and you could use any graphics that you wanted to, but for this purpose, I'm going to use the ones that we've already made. So let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to start on the timeline. We're going to create a few layers for just our very basic content. Where are we? Okay, so we need to create a layer for the globe that we're going to be able to shake around. There's a ribbon or a header of some sort that we're throwing in there so it looks very nice, and there's going to be a shadow, and there will be a background, and I believe the background has a table in it, so we're going to go ahead and create a table mask. Throw that on there. Alright, so when we have the base layers of everything, let's go to our library and get the background out of it. Here we go. Pull the background out of our library, and this could be any background, you know, that you wanted it to be. Go back to our timeline, see that we have our background laying out. And then we'll go and we'll get the ribbon, which I think I called it banner or something like that. Oh yeah, top banner. There we go. So pull that out, line it up, make sure it looks very nice. And then let's go get the shadow. The shadow is so that our globe, when we pick it up and shake it, you know, it'll look very realistic, and you can kind of see the shadow following you around, and you know. And then there should be a shadow mask. Well, let's go ahead and draw a shadow mask real fast. Let's lock these layers off and get media square. Okay, and I'm just grabbing the shape from the shape palette, from the tool palette, just to draw a quick shadow here. I think I previously had one on here, but this will do. Just need to kind of block out this table shape so that the shadow doesn't look funny whenever it moves off of the table. Okay, go to our arrow tool, kind of play with curves just a little bit. And that should do it. Oh, just a little bit more over here. Okay, there we go. So now we've got our little table mask, and it's not going to do anything except for block off that shadow. So, let's go ahead and create our globe. Well, actually, first we're going to set up the document class because it's a pretty simple class. We're going to put holiday tutorial card here into the document properties base class. And then we're going to create a new ActionScript file. So I'm going to hit Command New or Command In, or I can choose File. And, okay, ActionScript. Okay. Save this as it's on my desktop. Holiday card tutorial.as. Click Save, and then I'm gonna go ahead and copy and paste. But it's a I'll kind of walk through the class a little bit. So this class just extends the base of the ActionScript file, or of the FLA, and then in that we're gonna have a snow globe, which you'll see a little bit later. The shadow, which I've already put in there. And then it just does a couple of things for setting up the stage to not scale and such. Then we have an update function that's going to be called on every frame so that the shadow will stay where it's supposed to as you're dragging the snow globe around. And then, it just does some very simple math based on position and scale and height of where the globe is to scale, make the alpha slightly lower. Okay, so let's go back over here to our FLA. And we're going to go to insert, you can't see it because it's on my other screen, but insert new symbol. We're going to name this symbol snow globe container. Okay. Export for action script. And go. Okay. Now we have a new symbol where our globe container will be. So let's go ahead and get that set up. The snow globe container has a few things. It needs a base. It needs a highlight or the glass part. Excuse me. Okay. And then it's going to need inner content or like a scene, and then it's going to need the snow. So we're going to put 2 layers of snow so that it looks like there's some depth, right? We want some above and below the little scene, so some can trickle behind it. I mean, it won't be as noticeable, but it still adds a little bit. So let's go ahead and pull out our highlight from the library, which is the glass. Should be called the snow globe. So there we go. We have a little glass bulb there. Then we'll go and pull the base out. And the base has a few movie clips in it that we have already created here in Damani. So it has basically this, the graphics for the bottom, and then it has this FLV that we threw in that is lava, because every snow globe needs to have some lava. So here's our base, and then we'll go ahead and pull out the inner content, which we've already created in Photoshop as well. Rather than create it again, I decided might as well use what we've already got. There's a little bit going on in here, but you shouldn't have to worry about it because you're going to get the source of this, and also you can develop whatever you want inside this inner content clip. This is just for procedural things, right? So we got a little monkey guy, and he's climbing on a Damani hotel. It's kind of fun. Okay. Oh, there's one other part of content that needs to go in here. So we got a little blimp. So we're going to throw the blimp in here. The blimp is hovering somewhere back here behind our city. Our little mystical city. Alright. I think that's it for that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create, we're going to say insert new symbol. We're going to call this symbol snow generator circle. Export for action script. Okay. And then you don't have to do anything inside of this clip. It's just going to be for placement. So let's go back to scene 1, go to our library, and we just created this snow globe container. Let's pull that out onto the timeline in the globe layer right here. Snow globe container. Oh, there he is. And we're going to go ahead and set that right on the table. And then we're going to go inside of it by double clicking again. And this is where we're going to pull out the snow. So I have snow and snow on my layers. So I'm going to pull out my generator circle and throw it in the snow layer. Align it 0 and 0. and then do it again in this other layer for the behind the scenes. Okay. Now we're going to create a couple of ActionScript classes, because at this point we have all that we need. Aside from, I do need a holiday card tutorial so I can get the name of the globe. So we need to name our globe. Very simple, in the properties. And let's go into here. Okay, now we're going to create a new ActionScript file. Make sure it's selected. Okay. We're going to save this file. I don't know why it always wants to save it in random places. Save this file as snow globe container. Just like we created the symbol, and because we exported it for ActionScript, snow globe container is going to be the base file for that movie clip. And we need to put a little bit of code into this thing. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste. And I'll walk through this code just a little bit. So there are quite a few variables in here. There's the snow generator circle you'll see that we just created. We're going to create the new ActionScript file for that in a second. There's a cursor. Actually, delete that. That was legacy. There are a couple Boolean values for when you're dragging or when you're just mouse over certain things, because I chose to manually control the mouse over and out because a couple of weird things can happen using the event listeners. If you roll the mouse outside of the movie, sometimes it gets, like strange things could happen. Your mouse never lets go, so then you're trapped, and just some interactivity problems that I would rather not have. So, okay. Then we have a few things like when you put your mouse down, where you start. There's a couple of things for physics, like the velocity and the position, gravity, restitution. And these are just so when you let go of it, that it drops and kind of has a little bit of a bounce. Okay, so we go to our constructor. It just saves its position, where it starts. This is so you can place it anywhere in the movie, anywhere in the stage, and it can pay attention to where it's at without having to have any hard values. And set up some mouse interaction listeners. Then we go down to our guts, kind of, is this update function. And the first couple lines, they forcefully call them on mouse out, on mouse over, based on coordinates of the mouse, X and Y. And then if you're dragging, when you clicked mouse down, it sets drag to true. And then it's going to do the ability to drag if you're dragging. And then if you're not dragging, it's going to drop the globe. And it's going to have a little bit of physics to kind of bounce around whenever it hits the ground. Give it a semi-realistic and kind of fun interaction. Okay, let's create our snow generator, a new ActionScript file. We're going to save this. As snow generator circle.as. Go. And this class is more of it's just basically like a particle manager class, because it doesn't actually do too much of the work. It just kind of creates the snow particles and makes sure that there's a way to reset them and access them from outside of the snowflakes. Okay, let's go back to our timeline. We need to name these little snow guys here. I'm going to name that was the background. And then name the foreground snow. Alright, so that's named. Let's go back to our snow generator. So it also has an update function that it's calling every frame, which is calling inside of a snowflake. object to update that, and you'll see that in a second. There's also a public API call so that you can reset the snowflake, and that's what I chose to, rather than have actual physics for the snowflake. They have they can fall slowly like snow, but it doesn't actually like get thrown around in the globe because, for time reasons, to get the tutorial, we just decided to not make actual physics for it. So let's go ahead and we're going to create our snowflake since we have this class controlling this non-existent snowflake at this point. Snowflake.as, and it's going to be our object. And it doesn't need any movie clips tied to it. It's completely like standalone. It does its own thing. Flash doesn't have to worry about it. So when you instantiate the snowflake from inside Snow Generator, Snowflake has everything that it needs to function. It draws its own graphics. There's a circle class. Let's create this circle class right now. Circle. Save that as files to circle.as. And circle is a class that I created just to handle some rudimentary mathematics and things that I just, they were repetitive. I wanted them to be in one single place. There's a function to check and see if a smaller circle exists within the circle class. With the circle class, it's just an x, y, and a radius, which doesn't need much more. But then the functions do some trigonometry to get information out of certain things, like get point in range. It's not specific to this circle. It's just a circle, I guess, a couple of circles. And then get random point. That's just going to get you a random point in a max radius. It doesn't really even have to do with this circle either. It probably should, but I wanted to have that in there so that I could throw in a radius and get a random point out of that anywhere in it. Okay, so let's go back over to Snowflake. So you'll see that Snowflake has a circle in it, and it sets a radius to 160, and that's the size of our snow globe right here, from here to here. So when you first instantiate it, it's going to place itself in the middle of the globe somewhere. It doesn't really matter, and it's going to, that way, whenever you first launch it, there will be snow trickling. It'll be real whimsical and nice. And then you got there's a z-index. It's kind of faked. It's just there. It's not actually using the Flash z-index. I'm just using it so that you can kind of add a little bit of scale and blur. And then you can do, and then caches bitmap, which is good because it's going to keep these little tiny vector objects as one bitmap, or a single bitmap, a bunch of single bitmaps, which will be significantly faster. And then we have some physics velocity properties. And then the reset function is it just calls basically the same get random point out of the circle, which is the circle radius minus the radius of this current snowflake. And then the update function, this function just lets the snow fall, basically. And then you can throw in a little bit of wind to make it go either way, but I didn't choose to for this. And then whenever it reaches, if it's inside of the circle, it's going to be falling. And if it's not inside of the circle, if it runs into the side or into the bottom, it's going to just change it visible to false. Because I did have it building up at the bottom, but then we added the lava. It just didn't make any sense. So you could take out the else and just make it fall until it hits the bottom, and then they'll just stick to the sides and the wall and stuff like that. But for this tutorial, we're just going to have it be visible, and it gets burned up when it gets to the lava, basically. And then there's this function, calculate perspective, which just gives you a field of view number that gets applied to the blur up here. And that's pretty much it for this. I think let me just go and try to publish. Oh, we got a null object. So let's try to figure out where that would be. Holiday card tutorial update. Let's open that file. Okay, so we got our update. We got, oh, I didn't name shadow. Oops. Let's go back to scene 1 in the timeline and the shadow. Let's make sure I name that guy shadow. And that should do it. There we go. There's our fully functioning globe. And if you roll over and you click, drag, see that you shake, drop. Right on. I hope this tutorial's, decently useful. I kind of went a little bit quick, but I think it should give you a good idea of how to do a very basic globe with snow, and you can shake it. So you could always add more physics. There's plenty of physics engines. There's Box 2D. There's a lot of math online on Google and whatnot. But hopefully this has been somewhat useful, and happy holidays from Damani Studios.